So lesson 16 in Ruler has to do with personal values and emotion regulation. And we're going to start off with an opening activity. And just to remind you, differences in personal values may influence differences in how people choose to regulate their emotions. I think you know that by now. Now, you're going to be presented with a series of choices. Now, depending on which side you choose, I'm going to ask you to point to a side of the room and then physically move to that side of the room. And you're going to do that 5 times. And once you go through that, give you a chance to move around a little bit, stretch the legs, all that good stuff. When it's all said and done, I'm going to ask you to reflect on your choices. What choices did you find difficult to make? Explain why these choices were difficult and describe how you finally made a decision. Okay. So these are the things I want you to think about. Now, in yellow, big point before I show you the questions we're going to be working with. People make decisions every day, and many of our decisions are easy to make and might seem unimportant. But this being said, sometimes the decisions are more difficult and that our values influence the decisions and choices we make. And some decisions are easy for some people but difficult for others. So try to have some empathy for people who struggle with that. So here are the questions, and they're nothing too heavy. And the questions are number one, would you rather wear clothes with or without a print or a pattern? So you would rather wear like a plain blue shirt or something with a sports team or a musical artist, that kind of thing. Number two, would you rather be on stage or in the audience? Okay. Question three, would you rather be an athlete or an artist? Number four, would you rather spend time with your family or your friends? And then number five, would you rather do something with others or work on something alone? Now, before you say both, I'm going to ask you to choose one side. Okay. So even if you say, well, I like spending time with both my friends and my family, you still need to make a decision. Okay. So, anyway, here are the same questions, and here's the harder part. That first part was fairly easy. Now, for this drill, I'm going to ask you the same questions, but I want you to think about the values about people who would be on each side. And there is a point to this because not every human being we interact with is going to go about things the way you do. I'm going to do the first one with you, then I'm going to have you do the other four. So here's that lighthearted question. Would you rather wear clothes with or without a print or pattern? So with a print. So what would be a value? Maybe whatever's on that shirt. So if your shirt is the Detroit Lions, I value my connection with the Lions. You might have a person who values being paid attention to, and you want the attention that comes from that. Now, the other side, if you don't want to print, you might value being somebody who blends in, or somebody who's being incognito, or somebody who doesn't make themselves known, or somebody who doesn't feel like they want to pay good money to advertise for somebody else. So I just want you to think about this. For these two sides, what values would you assign to each of them? And you can change your answers. I just wanted to show you how to do it. So again, first question, the two sides are different values. Okay, the on stage or the in the audience, what would the values be for people who like being on stage, for those who don't want to be on stage? Okay, what would be the values most likely of an athlete? What would be the values most likely of an artist? Now, in terms of your family versus your friends, okay, this is show how you value each and what they mean to you. And then working with others versus working alone, people who are working with others, what do they value? And then people who work alone. Okay, so once you've gone through this drill, and bear in mind, there's no right or wrong answers. The big point is this, okay? Is now you're going to have to be on the side you didn't choose. How do you cope? Okay, so whatever you decided now, I want you to do the reverse. So pick the other side. Now, here's the big question. Let's be honest with ourselves. There are situations in life where we have to do something that isn't our first choice or isn't in line with our values. So I'll give you a hypothetical. Let's say I'm an introvert. I like working alone. I don't want to work with other people. And you have a teacher that says, big, huge grade, you need to work in a group. Now, at that point, you need to figure out how to cope. Or let's say you really enjoyed time with your friends and not so much with your family, but it is Thanksgiving and you are seeing your family. How do you cope with that? Let's say you are an artistic person and the gym teacher says you need to play this sport. Okay, you get what I'm saying. So now that you are looking at the other side, how do you cope? Okay. And again, going back to those different mechanisms you learned about, are you going to adapt? Are you going to retreat? That sort of thing. Okay, so now that we've gone through this drill, we're going to wrap up with journal entry number 16, which reads, what is the best way to go about coping when life forces you into scenarios that aren't in line with your values? In other words, how do you cope when you're presented with something that's not your favorite thing, that's not your plan A? How do you go about dealing with that? Then the second part of the question is, what is the best way to work with others that use different regulation strategies as you? And again, you're going to be interacting with people at all different levels, all different situations, and they cope with things differently and they value things differently. So, what's the best way to do that? And if I can give you a little suggestion, empathy and compassion goes a long way. Understanding you're different than me, but you're still going through the slings and arrows of life like I am. And you're handling it differently, but you're still going through it. And I empathize with that. I've found as the old guy works pretty well. So, anyway, I appreciate you watching.